I am 78 years old, and every morning I do something that makes me feel as if I were 50. It's not a medicine. It's not a miracle pill. It's not an expensive treatment or something recommended by a famous doctor. It's something much simpler, older, and more accessible than you might imagine. For years, I thought it was normal to feel slower, more tired, more old. My legs hurt when I got up. My stomach was increasingly sensitive, and some days even speaking took energy. I felt drained. Until I started this small daily habit that changed everything. The key? An oil. Yes, an oil I discovered almost by accident, but which has now become an essential part of my mornings. Since I started using it, I feel more vital. My digestion is much lighter, my joints no longer creak like before, and most importantly, I feel alive again. No, it hasn't taken years off me, but it has brought back something I thought I had lost forever. The desire to move, to do things, to enjoy the simple things. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what oil it is, why it works so well for older people, how I use it every day, and how you can start too if you are looking for a simple way to improve your health, your energy, and your well-being from home without spending a fortune or complicating your life. But before I tell you my secret, I want to know you. How old are you? Which country are you watching me from? Leave it in the comments down below. I love reading your stories, knowing where you watch me from, and feeling that we are a community of older people who still have so much to live for. Because it's not about living more years, it's about living them better. Now then, let's get started. Tack. Before discovering that oil that now is part of my life, I woke up every morning with just one question in my head. How is it possible that something as simple as starting the day has become so difficult? I felt heavy legs, stiff joints, as if my body refused to move. My knees creaked when I stood up, and my hands, well, they had simply lost strength. Opening a bottle of water, tying my shoelaces, or even writing a note were tasks I used to do without thinking, and that now were difficult. Sometimes my back hurt so much that I preferred not to leave the house. And then there was the tiredness. But I'm not talking about the normal tiredness one feels after a long day. I mean a deep exhaustion, as if something inside me was slowly shutting down. I slept my 8 hours, sometimes more, but upon waking, I felt as if I hadn't rested at all. I dragged myself in the morning as if carrying a lead blanket. I also had many digestive problems. Bloating, heartburn, a feeling of heaviness after every meal. At times I stopped enjoying what I ate, and what used to be a pleasure, sharing the table with my family, trying a new recipe, became a source of discomfort. The worst part was that I came to think all that was normal, that it was part of aging. I told myself, "You're over 70 now. This is how it is. The body is not the same." And little by little, I stopped fighting. I stopped walking so much, stopped reading at night because my eyes got tired, stopped visiting friends because I simply didn't have the energy. But the worst wasn't the physical pain. The worst wasn't having to take a break after making the bed or complaining when climbing stairs. The worst was feeling like I was fading away, as if a light inside me was getting dimmer and dimmer, as if my life was passing in front of my eyes, but I was only watching it from a chair. And that, more than any physical symptom, was what weighed on me the most. It was then, in the midst of that resignation, that I started looking for something different. I didn't want to feel like I did at 30 again. I just wanted to feel like myself again. And that was the beginning of everything. There came a moment when I got fed up with feeling that way. Going from doctor to doctor, coming out with prescriptions full of names I couldn't pronounce, filling my nightstand with pill bottles that promised relief, but didn't change anything. I got tired of taking something for pain that only dulled it for a few hours, of using medicine for my stomach that left me drowsy the rest of the day. I began to realize that what I needed wasn't something that would mask symptoms, but something that would give strength back to my body, something that worked with it, not against it. So I started getting interested in natural remedies. It didn't happen overnight. It was something that arose after a simple conversation with my daughter. We were having coffee and she said, "Dad, have you ever tried changing your habits instead of just piling up medications?" She told me how many people her age were returning to the simple things, real food, grandma's remedies, oils and plants that our grandparents knew by heart. That stuck with me. Soon after, a neighbor, a man about my age, told me he had started using a natural oil every morning and that it had changed his days. He said he felt more energetic, had less pain, and even slept better. At first I thought he was exaggerating, or maybe he had privileged health, but something inside me sparked, and I decided to investigate. I started reading, asking questions, watching videos, talking to people in senior health groups. I found out there were many kinds of natural oils with different properties, some for digestion, others for inflammation, others for energy. Some came from seeds, others from roots, and others even from fruits. I bought several to try. Some did nothing for me. Others honestly made me feel worse. But I kept looking. I wrote everything down in a notebook. How I felt after each one, how long they took to work, if I noticed anything different. Until I found one. One that not only didn't upset me, but made me feel something I hadn't felt in years. Lightness. Not euphoria, not a miracle, but something inside me felt more awake, more present, as if my body was saying, "This one works for me." And that's when I decided to give it a real chance. I started using it every day, with discipline. I didn't know if it would work long term, but at that moment I thought, what do I have to lose? Dahak. Now the time has come to tell you which oil changed my life. After weeks of trying different options, reading articles, listening to those who knew more than me, and above all paying attention to how my body responded, the oil I ended up incorporating every morning was extra virgin olive oil, cold pressed. Yes, as simple as that. The very same one you probably have in your kitchen, but that you're likely not using the way you should. And let me tell you something. Not all olive oils are the same. The key is that it's extra virgin and cold pressed. That combination preserves all the beneficial compounds that nature put there. Antioxidants, good fats, and a bunch of nutrients that the body, especially after 60, receives like a treasure. And why this oil? Why not one of those more modern or exotic oils advertised everywhere? Because olive oil has centuries of backing. From ancient Greece to the longest-lived regions in the world like Sardinia, Crete, or southern Spain, people who live beyond 90 or even 100 have one thing in common. They use olive oil every day. It's no coincidence. This oil is rich in oleic acid, a healthy fat that helps reduce inflammation, protect the heart, and improve circulation. It also contains polyphenols, antioxidant compounds that fight cellular aging. Some studies have even shown that olive oil may have a protective effect against neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. But beyond studies and difficult words, I tell you as someone who has lived it, when you take it every morning on an empty stomach, the body feels it. It's as if little by little you start lubricating your internal gears. Digestion improves, bloating decreases, and that heaviness I felt every morning began to disappear. The curious thing is, I had had olive oil at home all my life. I used it for cooking, for dressing salads, but I had never taken it as a daily supplement, never considered it a health tool. And that was precisely what made the difference, turning it into a conscious, daily, constant habit. I have tried other oils since then, coconut oil, flaxseed oil, even some more exotic ones like avocado oil, and I don't rule them out. They all have their merits. But the one that earned its place in my routine was extra virgin, cold-pressed olive oil. For its benefits, yes, but also for how easy it is to get, how accessible, and how well my body received it from day one. Since I started using it, I haven't felt like before. And that, believe me, is priceless. Hag. Since discovering this oil, the first thing I did was something very simple. I made it a daily ritual, not a passing fad, not a magical internet recipe, but a routine as natural as washing my face or brushing my teeth. Every morning, right after waking up, before breakfast, even before coffee, I take a tablespoon of extra virgin cold-pressed olive oil. But I don't do it just anyway. I discovered that the time and manner in which you consume it make all the difference. I take it on an empty stomach, with my stomach completely empty. Sometimes I accompany it with half a glass of warm water with a few drops of fresh lemon. And I can assure you that combination has worked wonderfully for me. It's smooth, doesn't feel heavy, and helps the body absorb it more easily. At first, I confess, it was a bit hard. I wasn't used to taking oil by itself. I thought it would be unpleasant. But to my surprise, the taste is mild, almost fruity if it's a good oil. And the most important thing, my body appreciates it. Within less than 5 minutes, I start to feel my digestion activate. I feel lighter, less bloated, and over time I noticed I no longer have those mid-morning energy crashes that used to be part of my day. For those who don't dare to take it alone, there are alternatives. You can add it to a whole wheat toast with tomato or avocado. You can mix it with plain unsweetened yogurt and a pinch of turmeric. Or even add it to a fruit salad or a green smoothie. The important thing is not to heat or cook it. Heat destroys many of its properties, so avoid frying with it if you want its medicinal benefits. And here's something important I learned. Less is more. You don't need large amounts. 1 tablespoon a day is enough to get its positive effects. Taking more doesn't mean better results. In fact, if you overdo it, you might feel heaviness or even intestinal discomfort. I also avoid combining it with other supplements at the same time. I like to give the oil its space so the body receives it calmly without mixing it with capsules or infusions. And of course, I don't accompany it immediately with processed food or strong coffee. I wait at least 20 or 30 minutes before eating anything else. Over time, this small morning gesture has become my way of starting the day consciously. While I take my tablespoon, I breathe deeply, give thanks for another day, and give my body a first gift before asking it to accompany me in everything that comes. It's not a diet, it's not a trend, it's an act of daily care. And believe me, you can tell. Doug. After just 1 week taking this oil every morning, something started to change. It wasn't a dramatic change, not one you see in movies or exaggerated ads. It was more silent, but constant. Almost as if my body was saying, "Thank you, you're finally giving me what I need." The first thing I noticed was a different energy. It wasn't a hyperactive spike like some supplements or strong coffee give. It was a stable, serene energy. I felt awake, present, but without anxiety, as if my body had more fuel, but good fuel. Then came the improvement in digestion. For years I had lived with that feeling of heaviness, as if every meal was a burden. I felt bloated, uncomfortable, slow. But by incorporating olive oil on an empty stomach, I noticed my digestion became lighter. Less gas, less reflux, less feeling of overfull. I started to have more regular bowel movements, and that, for someone my age, is a change to celebrate. But what impacted me the most was what happened with my joints. For a long time, it was hard for me to get up from the sofa without feeling stiffness in my knees. Climbing stairs had become a small daily challenge, and although I never had a serious diagnosis, I knew the wear and tear was there, making itself felt. However, as the days passed, I began to notice that mornings were less painful. I got up more easily. My fingers, which before felt like rusty gears, started moving more smoothly. I even started taking longer walks again without having to stop every 15 minutes to rest. One morning, I realized I had climbed the stairs of my building without holding onto the handrail. It was a small moment, but for me, enormous. Because it wasn't just about the body, it was about the feeling of trusting it again. There were also improvements in my sleep. Before, I had trouble falling asleep, and when I did, I woke up several times during the night. Over time, that situation began to change. I slept more deeply, without interruptions. And most importantly, I woke up feeling I had truly rested. That had a direct effect on my mood. I felt more patient, more positive, less irritable. It's hard to explain how something as simple as a bit of oil upon waking can have that impact. But it did. When you feel good physically, you also change how you see the day. Things don't bother you as much. You enjoy the small moments again. A cup of tea, a quiet conversation, a walk in the sun. I won't lie to you. The oil hasn't taken years off me. I'm still 78. I still have my wrinkles, my grey hairs, my slow moments. But what it has given me back is something I had started to lose. The feeling of vitality inside those years. That spark that makes you feel you still can, that it's still worth caring for this body, this life, this day. And that, believe me, is worth more than any miracle in a bottle. Attack. The physical was the first to improve, yes, but the most unexpected was what started happening inside my head. For years I felt a bit foggy. I don't know if it's happened to you. You wake up and feel awake, but not completely. As if your mind needed an extra hour to turn on. I had trouble concentrating, forgot little things, and reading a book became harder, not because of my eyesight, but because I didn't retain what I read. But a few days after starting this oil every morning, I began to notice a different mental clarity. It wasn't magic, it wasn't overnight, but it was noticeable. My thoughts were more organized. I remembered things better. Conversations flowed without that awkward moment of, what was their name again? And something curious happened. That feeling of lightness the oil gave me in my stomach, I also felt in my mind. Less noise, more focus. I could sit down to read, enjoy a movie without losing track, or simply write a note without having to check 1,000 times what I wrote. And this, even if it doesn't seem like it, also changed how I felt emotionally. Having a daily routine that starts with something so simple yet so powerful gives you direction. You wake up with a purpose, with a small decision that makes a difference early on. It's like telling your body and mind, today we are going to take care of ourselves. That creates something very deep, motivation. I noticed it when one day I found myself organizing my library, something I hadn't done in years. Another day, I went out walking alone around the neighborhood, aimlessly, like when I was younger. Little by little, I went back to activities I had abandoned due to lack of energy or simply lack of will. And it wasn't just that. With each small achievement, with each step without pain, with each good night's sleep, my self-esteem began to grow again. I looked in the mirror, and although I saw the same man, I felt something had come back. Not youth in the aesthetic sense, but something deeper, the perception of still being capable. Sometimes, age doesn't take away your desire. What takes it away is feeling limited. But when you recover a bit of clarity, strength, mental agility, you also recover the desire to do things, to try again. I remember I started writing letters to my grandchildren again. Before I felt slow writing, clumsy, scattered. But now, my thoughts came out better, clearer. I wrote with emotion, with love, without that effort that used to exhaust me. And they replied enthusiastically, happy to read from Grandpa again. It was like reconnecting with a part of me that I had left behind without realizing it. And it all started with a tablespoon of oil upon waking. It may seem insignificant, but the truth is that simple act was the gateway to a better version of myself. A more awake, happier, more willing version to live each day fully, no matter the age. And if that's not a real change, then I don't know what is. So, common mistakes and warnings. Now then, not everything that glitters is gold, and although this oil has brought me many benefits, I also learned, through my own and others' experience, that there are mistakes that can take away the good, or even cause problems. The first and most common is using low-quality oil. When I started, I made this mistake. I went to the supermarket and grabbed the first bottle that said, healthy oil. I tried it for a few days, but didn't feel any change. Later, I found out why. Many oils sold in big stores are refined, mixed, or heat-treated, which removes much of their beneficial properties. If you're going to do it right. The oil must be extra virgin, cold-pressed and pure. No blends with cheap vegetable oils. None of those bottles that say light or mild. Those have actually gone through processes that remove what really nourishes. Another common mistake is exceeding the amount. At first I thought, if 1 tablespoon does me good, 2 will do better. Wrong. More is not always better. Consuming too much oil, even if healthy, can cause discomfort like diarrhea, stomach heaviness, or even imbalances in blood fat levels, especially if you're not used to it. And of course, not all bodies are the same. There are people with specific conditions, like liver problems, gallstones, or allergies, who should consult their doctor before adding any oil as a daily supplement, especially if you're already on medication or have a controlled diet. I remember a friend who started taking coconut oil without guidance. Soon after, his cholesterol spiked. The problem? He already had a pre-existing condition, and that oil wasn't ideal for him. It's not that the oil is bad, it's that each body has its own context. That's why my recommendation is simple. Start little by little. You don't have to change your life overnight. Begin with half a teaspoon, observe how your body reacts for a few days. If all goes well, increase to 1 tablespoon. Pay attention to how you feel, not just physically, but also emotionally. Do you sleep better? Do you have more energy? Does your digestion improve? The key is listening to yourself. Don't take this advice as a magic rule. Take it as an invitation to try something natural, powerful, but that also must be handled with respect and knowledge. Because at the end of the day, the wisest thing is not to do what others do, but to learn to understand what your body needs and act consciously. Now that we've come this far, I want to tell you something I've learned over the years. It's not magic, it's consistency. Don't expect instant results. It's not a miracle pill that changes everything in one day. It's a small act of care that, if you do it every morning, with respect and regularity, can transform how you feel inside and out. I didn't start feeling 20 years younger overnight. At first, it was just a small improvement in my digestion. Then I noticed I had more energy during the day. Later, my joints started hurting less, and my mood completely changed. I smiled more, moved more, felt alive. And it all started with 1 tablespoon. That's why today I sincerely invite you to try it too. You don't need to commit for a month or a year. I just ask you to give it a chance for 1 week, 7 days. Every morning, on an empty stomach if you can, or however suits you best. Observe your body. Listen to your feelings. See how you feel upon waking, how your digestion responds, how your mood changes. Don't underestimate small habits. Sometimes the simplest, most humble things can be what your body has been silently asking for years. What makes the difference is not the oil itself. It's what it represents. A conscious decision to take care of yourself, to give yourself a moment to start the day with intention and self-love. Maybe we won't recover the years gone by, but we can recover life within the years we have left. And if after trying it you feel any change, no matter how small, I invite you to share it. Comment below what you felt, what you noticed, if you dared to try it. Because you never know who you might inspire just by sharing your experience. Before I finish, let me ask you one last question. Are you willing to give yourself this small change for 7 days? Do it. Not for me, not for anyone else. Do it for you, because you deserve it. And if you made it this far, thank you for your time, your trust, and for sharing this moment with me. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you want more content like this, natural, human, and full of real experiences. See you in the next video.